particularly when someone gives me a big hug, I'll whisper in their ear, "It's the goddess within." First of all, they didn't, in particularly for television, they didn't think that a woman could hold a show at the time. That the westerns and you had some comedy. You had Mary Tyler Moore and Carol Burnett, but they didn't think that women had a TVQ, which is television quotient, and so they just didn't think a woman could carry a show and get advertisers. It's like, excuse me, like, who buys the groceries, who pays for everything, who buys the things for the kids? It's the women. And interestingly enough, I go onto sets now, and I will tell young producers and people that showrunners and things, that women, I'll say, when I started, the only other woman on the set was the script supervisor, which is basically the secretary of the film. And now you've got so many women producers and all kinds of things. So it's not even in front of the camera, it's behind the camera as well. There were no women that were writing it. There were no women that were doing the music. There were no women that were directing. There were no women that ran the show or line producers or any of that. And so I think in that way, from the business side, Wonder Woman represented a lot of breakthroughs. They had men doubling women in most of the stunts. And we couldn't have a hairy guy doubling me. There was just not. There's this one guy. They had a Russian chair, I think it's called, and it's a big swing, and it's got and it launches a person into the air. They go, woo, and he had it like a hairy chest and everything. And a wig on. Oh, it's going to be from the back. You'll never see it. I said, I can't have. It's like he's got this like a guy's square shape, It's like I grew up as a child of the World War II veterans' wives. So my father was in the Air Corps, and all these women went to work. And before that time, nobody worked. Women didn't work, but women had to take over those jobs while all the men were at war. And understandably, all the men came home and expected their jobs back, and they were right. But women were going, oh my God, I've got to go back to not being in control anymore. So what you had was a generation of women my age that had mothers that were saying, you can do whatever you set your mind to. Through education, you don't have to settle for anything. And I think it was really our mothers that began the growth of the women's movement in the early 70s and late 60s. Wonder Woman didn't really have these superpowers like other superheroes. What she had was off of really her own training. Now the Lasso of Truth did have magical powers, but she had to compete with with the other women on the island to be able to go, and so she didn't fly. She jumped really high, extremely athletic, and there was definitely some fantasy and some magical things, but she didn't really know any better than to, kind of like the girls today and men today. My son, who's 23, my daughter, who just turned 21, it is absolutely without question that they will have a professor that's a woman. They'll have intern with a woman. My daughter interned at the Maryland prosecutor's office, and now it's a woman. And Their grandmother was the creator of It's Academic, so talk about a pioneer. Sophie Altman, she worked until she died at 95. So they had a lot, and myself, for a lot of people, they had this image of women that, well, yeah, okay, that's so. It wasn't an effort, but for the men of our time, I think Wonder Woman helped to bridge a gap, certainly generationally. But they just, I have the most magnificent men in my life, and behind every great woman is a great man, you know. And so, you know, Wonder Woman, she didn't know how to do it any other way. And I think in that way, it's that secret self that women see in Wonder Woman. And to this day, that my body, my beauty, my intellect, my prowess at anything, you know, that's just who I am, and it's all okay. And she really was the character that didn't make you have to be masculine to be, you know, to be effective.
Pharmaton con omega 3. Ayuda a proteger tu sistema cardiovascular. Pharmaton, hace posible lo que quieras.
The network said, we got to get, you know, you're going to turn off a lot of people with this feminist talk. Because, you know, feminism was so dangerous. It's like, what? You know, put women in their, it was very disconcerting that we couldn't have that. It was in the pilot, and it was in those first few. But one thing that I was able to pull through as a result of them not allowing me to give these, you know, to pontificate on these feminist ideals, was that I didn't have to dumb her down anymore. That this alter ego, particularly when we went to when we moved from the 40s into the present day, that she was smart, she ran a thing, she, you know, you just took it for granted that other people didn't know that she was Wonder Woman. It had to be a leap of faith because she looks just like her. It's not like she wears a mask or anything, you know. And that was a bit of a fight. And Doug Kramer was the producer, and he fought with me on it, so it was good. When we were just coming out of the 50s and the 60s with the Ozzie and Harriet and all of that kind of thing, Father Knows Best, where you had these predictable female heroes. And certainly in the 40s, you know, you had, it was the first time that women really had a voice, and it was through Wonder Woman. Then you had, you know, Rosie the Riveter and that Wonder Woman comic. If you think about how the creator of Wonder Woman really felt that girls needed a hero too, and developed Wonder Woman. But you had the mores of the, you know, white Anglo-Saxon male type of guys running pretty much everything, and it was, oh, you know, oh, isn't that clever kind of thing. And then when women went to work, I got to tell you, it's my mother's generation. But you know, it was pulling teeth to have people move, and I think Burn the Bra and a lot of the feminist uprising and all of that was that we had to make a statement, and the statement couldn't be subtle. Wonder Woman, I think, helped to bridge that, in that guys liked her, girls liked her. Women were not intimidated by her or didn't think she was going to steal their man. And that was by design by me. When I got the role, one of the first things that a producer said to me was, "Boy, are you going to have a lot of women hating you?" And I went, "Huh?" And he was probably right, the way that he saw, this scantily clad, beautiful young woman running around. Oh, God, I don't want my husband lusting after this woman. But in my own mind, I knew I needed to add something to that character that prevented that where women knew that you just say I'm just a viewer, and my husband wants to watch it with me. And I think it's okay, because if he was lusting after Wonder Woman, he'd be a jerk, and she'd bop him upside the head. She'd be the first to get out of here. What are you doing with this beauty? You've got this beauty, And it really is the way that I felt. When sexual harassment, which is real, by the way, it's happening right now in politics, but when you've got all this sexual harassment coming, to the light, and it's serious, and to be made to feel that you have to be subjected to it. As a attractive woman, you get it from the time you start to develop, and you learn to deal with it. Now, there are people that press too hard, but basically you kind of go, God, get a grip. My daughter doesn't happen to her, because it's not as much in that dominating, the male-dominated thing. But women would come to me for autographs for their husbands or their fathers. Boys saw a woman that was strong and beautiful and smart, and that was cool. And women saw their own secret self. And gay and lesbian people saw their own version of what that meant to them. The little guy, the not as attractive woman, they see that who you really are is this archetype of a person that you can trust and you can believe in. And whether you're on the outside or whether it's coming from the inside, I believe that was part of the design for the character that I certainly tried to bring, and that was a certain kind of sweetness that I didn't need to play Wonder Woman. The costume and all of the stuff that was going on really was what that character was able to. I mean, I was able to do that, so I didn't have to play like I was all up. I thought I was all that, and it's like, okay. When I first moved to Washington, my husband came home with a letter, and she'd addressed it to his office because she was able to find me. And it has stuck with me. This woman said she had grown up in the projects and watched Wonder Woman. And she knew she could be something. And she was now at MIT doing this thing or that. I've forgotten exactly where she ended up in her career or where she was at the time. But she said, it gave me the courage. I knew it was inside of me and that I had to be the one to do something about it. And I've heard that, particularly back then, I heard it a lot. And, you know, it's a pretty cool thing. That letter touched me, and many people. It's surprising. I was just talking to someone at DC Comics. I asked them for this new comic that had just come out about Wonder Woman. They started a new version, and I didn't have any, so I asked them to send me a couple for my little stash I have for my grown children, and we were emailing back and forth, and I looked this up. Wonder Woman was 33. The comic was 33 years old when I started to do Wonder Woman, and from that first episode till now is 37 years. What? Is that right? Can that be right? You know, I am aware of it because I'll go into a station, TV station, and people will know who I am, and they just come up and they hug me, and that's the way they feel. And I know it's not me. I know it's her and how I played her and that sort of thing. But I get it. I get it, and I like to hear people's stories. There are some doozies I've come across that I created a character that was so iconic. It was already iconic, but what I did with it brought flesh and blood to two-dimensional character. And I think that I'm back to doing music now, but the fame that Wonder Woman brought me also helped me to bring my music in, that I'd been singing professionally since I was 14, and I was able to put my music, bring my music into the fame thing, and did a couple of albums and traveled around and did a lot of shows and CBS specials. I did 5 of those, and then took time off to have my family, and now I'm back, and it's my 3rd studio album. It's out. So Wonder Woman has longevity, not just as an iconic and archetypal kind of a character, but in my own personal life. People are interested. Oh, I didn't know she sang. Because no matter what, even though I did these specials and all that, people, they see Wonder Woman when they see me, and that's good and not so good, because I'll never have another character that is that memorable. Very few actors ever have a character that is that, seared into people's minds. She also brought all the other things into my life that I have. Now, really through her is how I met my husband, because I was famous through Wonder Woman, and then I did ads for Maybelline for many years, and he was in Memphis at the same time I was, and so I moved to Washington. There's so many things that made a huge impact in my life, pioneering the character as an actor. And I have to say that doing a comic book character is almost impossible. And there's a kind of a secret to it. And I mentioned this before. You can't play it. You can't play a comic book character. Even when people do spoofs on it, it's not funny. People want to believe, and you have to make it real. And if it isn't real for you as an actor, you can't be doing, you have to have some, the character has to be full. The personality, the individuality, because a beautiful woman is not just beautiful because she's, you know, she can be a real bitch and not very pretty at all. And this, by the same token, and you know, if this doesn't mean anything, if all this stuff doesn't mean anything, you don't like her, nobody cares. So I think it's a trap that a lot of people have made with stories and trying to do superhero stories, is they don't let the character breathe enough. That that's why Spider-Man, I think, was so successful. It's the vulnerability in the person and the wonder of how they got that way and questioning and all of that. I know they tried to remake Wonder Woman, and I can't imagine a better person with characters. David Kelly is great with characters, and he tried to recreate doing Wonder Woman. Now, I don't know what happened with it. It never aired. The pilot never aired. But there would be a tendency, I think, not, you know, to worry too much about what's going on and not enough about what her vulnerabilities are and how she feels about things. She has to have a point of view. I learned a long time ago that, number one, it takes a lot more effort to distance yourself, to not sign autographs, to try to deny, all that stuff. It takes a lot more effort to, you know, to be a jerk than it does just to be nice. I have gained personally so much from hearing stories about Wonder Woman, that personal stories from people. I do carry the mantle, thank goodness, because people endow me with all these wonderful attributes, whether I possess them or not. You know, you can ask my kids. I think now they might say it would be okay, and yeah, she's a lot like her, but I think when they were younger, they would, it's my mom, you know. Oh, you should see her when she gets mad. I do, and I know that I learned a long time ago that I'm never going to get away from it. I said, I'll be 50 and people will still be calling me Wonder Woman. I'm past 50. And, you know, I'm happy. I'm happy I got to play her. They paid me a lot of money to put that costume on. I got to create something that was living and breathing and that people remember. So it's pretty cool. Doug Kramer also did Batman, I think. He was part of that. So I think a lot of that was a lot of that, you know, funny stuff was a carryover. One thing I learned as a young actress is if you think you're hysterical on a set, chances are it doesn't, you know, it's not really that funny to everybody else because it's an inside joke. So you get a great actor like Red Buttons, and you know he was fantastic in it. Cloris Leachman played it straight. You can have these pauses and you can have these large reactions, but you know, if it's too inside, nobody cares again. And I just wasn't going to go there. You know, they had to have a straight person, and it was me. But I just really couldn't I had a lot more freedom as an actress when we moved to the current, which is ancient history now, but at the time it was present day. I haven't looked at that scene in a long time. She was a very accomplished actress, and she had been in comedy. She did some things with Jerry Lewis and, you know, some various things. And we talked as a young actress, just trying to get what I could from these great actors I had a chance to work with. And it was very well staged, I thought. Stunt people, I thought, did it very well. And I just kind of let her be her, and, you know, I'm like on, what? So the fight, I never really thought of it until you mentioned it. Right now, it would be kind of a provocative type of a thing. That's not something I would have thought of. And I was just trying to stay really true to my character. And so a lot of people did a lot of things around me, and I, you know, just tried to think that these people are fools, you know. What are you doing? And Stella was great. I think you can make a fight out of nothing, but I think the best fight story is we had a bunch of football players on, and they were being given something that made them crazy or something. I don't remember the exact what the episode was, but Bubba Smith was there, and he told the stunt coordinator in no uncertain terms that there was going to be no effing woman that's going to punch him out or throw him down. Now this is, you know, this is what the stunt coordinator told me. Whether he really said something like that or not, I don't know. But so we devised this little plan, and they taught me how to just, it's really leverage, how you can flip someone just through leverage. You don't have to really pick them up or anything. It's about a certain kind of a movement. You have your foot here and there or whatever. So we were just going to, you know, we're just going to try to set it up, but the camera was really rolling. And so the stunt coordinator goes, I said, okay, I bet you don't think I could do this, but let's just try it. Let me just see. You know, we won't film it. I went, boop. And so Bubba Smith, I tossed Bubba Smith, the football player.
Suavidad y sabor unidas para unir. Nueva Stella Blanche.
Llegó el Black Friday de Mercado Libre. Hasta 50% off y hasta 12 cuotas sin interés.
Mercado Libre.
I wore less on the beach. I mean, it was more than a bikini, you know. It was the American flag in a one-piece suit. And originally, Don had put this boning in, and everyone was all nervous because I couldn't sit down and this. And I said, you know, they had a slant board and it was a whole thing. So I just started, people thought that I pulled in my waist. I actually didn't. Because my waist is really small, and or it was back then. And the truth is, I had them take it out because I didn't want it to look too like hourglassy. I know it's a ridiculous problem to have. I thought it looked too small. Oh my God, can you believe it? But there you go. Oh, this was constructed like a, you know, it used to actually be whale bones. They don't use whale bones anymore. But back in for centuries they used these bonings called whale bone, but it's not really whale bone anymore. They just have plastic little things. But in bustiers, Yeah, they did. I don't, you know who I think had the problem? Is that Jeannie Epper. Jeannie Epper was running, doing some flip or doing something, and one of the girls fell out. And the other thing about the other things about Wonder Woman was that there really was no stunt women's union, stunt women's association. As I mentioned earlier, men, for the most part, doubled all the women in car chases and various things. And on horseback, Jeannie Epper would be the exception because she doubled Lynda Evans when she did that Western with, I've forgotten what the name of the Western was.
Big Valley.
Big Valley. And she grew up in a famous stunt family of horsemen and stuff like that. And they started using her, and then they brought in someone that could do this particular kind of thing and that. And they actually formed the Stunt Women's Association from that, from Wonder Woman. And at the same time, Bionic Woman was going, so they started using women for that too. So there was a question as to how Wonder Woman would appear. Couldn't be a phone booth, not just ducking into some. They wanted something to happen, and so they got this thing called like a lazy Susan, to try to put it on some kind of like a spinner, stand in the middle, and then would. So they had the idea of some kind. No, it's not, and so I said, well. And it was like they were spending a lot of time trying to get this thing to work. And I said, well, why don't I just do a turn? Why don't I just do a dance spin? You could do that. Yeah. So originally, I would start to spin, then they'd stop the camera, and I would hold the costume up here. You can kind of see it in the first couple. And then the old costume, and then hold like trying to have them spin away or something. They realized that wasn't going to work, and so they put the blast in. But we would tie off a camera, a slow-mo camera, and we would have the spot. The lights would stay the same, and they'd tie this off. So we'd finish the rest of whatever character, whatever side of the character I was doing, and then we'd come back the next day or the next 2 days or later that day when I've changed and complete the spin. And I invented.
En Mostaza sabemos cuando una M va sí o sí con mayúscula. Manos mágicas.
Te estás riendo que estás nervioso, ¿eh?
En meter miedo mal.
Mira que te como, hermano.
En mover multitudes.
Llegó el momento de ser mega, pero mega argentino.
Mostaza, hamburguesas con M mayúscula.
That was great. The helicopter hanging thing. They threatened to fire me over. But here's the situation. We're in a canyon. We'd been filming there. They got the helicopter in, but something goes wrong, as you know, in these things, and it was in a canyon. And the camera was set for this big stunt where the stunt woman goes up, and they said, we can't do this shot. We're not far away enough. So then by the time they start to move the camera to get far away so you don't see it, they were going to do that, but the sun is going down and we're moving that location. So we either get the shot or we don't get the shot. So I can be kind of controlling. I would say I can be a little aggressive. So I went up. They're all tall. I said, okay, just roll it. Just roll it. And I got up on the thing and I got on the struts, but I didn't use the little safety thing. I didn't know you're supposed to. And I just take it up. Just go, before the sun's going down. Go. So they went, and the helicopter went up, puts me back down. I say, good, we got the shot. You know, everyone. Of course, I don't have enough experience to know that every one of these people is going to get in major trouble. The director, the assistant director, the stunt coordinator, all these people got in trouble, and they said, you pull something like that, we can't afford to, you know. But it was really cool. It was so cool. All the wind, and you raise above the thing, and I could rise above the can. It was probably 30 feet. But it was, I mean, what other profession can you do something like that? Hang from a helicopter, learn karate, learn how to do these things, fight, learn how to throw a punch, flip Bubba Smith. I think that is the job of every good actor, is to not have it look like acting, you know. And you have to have I was kind of a hardscrabble young girl. I started singing at 14 in clubs. I was such a good girl. I mean, I never got in trouble, never got a speeding ticket, never got anything. I just kind of did the straight and narrow, although I was singing in nightclubs, going to high school and singing in nightclubs at night. It's like, Mom, how could you let me do that? But her answer to that was, have you ever tried to change Lynda's mind on anything? You know, and she trusted me. There was nothing, I was working. I wasn't playing. I was doing what I love to do. So it's kind of, yeah, I guess there's a little bit of, I hope there's a little bit of Wonder Woman in me. For as long as I can remember, I saw the Dinah Shore Chevy show. See the USA. You know. And it had to, I don't know when it went off the air, but I had to be like 3 or something, and that's what I want to do. Okay. And I made up my mind to do it, and I sang in everything I could. As all kids put the shows on for their parents, you know, we've all sat through those shows that can go on for a long time. And I just I sang in everything I could. There was some place in me that knew no one was going to help me, and I had to help myself. That there was no one that was going to point me in a direction or discover me and push me in a place. And I think that's part of what I gave to Wonder Woman, is that she took responsibility for herself and for others. You know, there's this big scandal going on now that has to do with violence against children through trusted people. And, you know, along the way, and most likely for many years before this predator at Penn State was doing what he does. He didn't just start when he was in his 50s or something, you know. And along the way, people did not take responsibility for trying to grab this guy for one reason or another. And that's, I think, if superheroes, certainly Wonder Woman, you know, she'd be over at Penn State with the lasso of truth. That was one thing I never got to do. She got even, she didn't get angry. She got angry and but you never got to see too much of that, of the emotional side of Wonder Woman. And I think if we did it today, and if I were doing the character today, that I would I would show that part of injustice. Personally, any bullying of any kind drives me crazy. Anyone that is using violence or force against another person for ideas to put into someone else, I really am personally incensed by it. And people who, work off of fear, having the fear, as we all know, living in this country, what that can do to a nation when you've got, you should be afraid, And then you got old Roosevelt saying, there's nothing to fear but fear itself.
Saca tu tarjeta de crédito BBVA y disfrútala un año bonificada. Ya te podés imaginar todo lo que te vas a ahorrar en 12 meses.
That's not what I said.
Okay. What did you say?
Roll it back. No, I said, were I playing that character today, if I were not, obviously, I cannot play Wonder Woman. I could play her mother. But you need a, you need a...
Updated Wonder Woman, yes.
Yeah. Roy Rogers did not ask me to cover up, and he was not embarrassed. He wanted to play the character because it had to do with adopted children. And as a matter of fact, I've got a signed, Roy Rogers signed one of the Wonder Woman scripts that I have upstairs. I'll show you afterward. So he just, everybody loved him. He was so sweet. And there was not an inkling. If he said he was embarrassed to play, it doesn't even sound right. It just doesn't even sound right, because what our conversations were, playing two iconic characters. And, you're much more, amazingly beautiful than I said, you were beautiful. So, we had, being connected with that one character, we had a couple of conversations like that, and I think we had lunch together, and it was great. Certainly Red Buttons, the pilot, our director of that pilot died not long after. I don't even think he got to edit it, of a heart attack. But meeting Red Buttons for me was just, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. It was great. I think I liked, there was one we did a couple of about leprechauns that I thought it was a lot of fun. Lyle was, I believe that Lyle Wagner was cast before I was. And he did the test with me. And I think he put in his vote for me, along with Doug Kramer. And he was a very, very nice guy. And, if there, as a matter of fact, if I ever run into him, I think I owe him an apology. There was a lot of kind of, a lot of things that went on during that time about trying to limit his involvement with the show or something like that didn't ever come from me. But I think that he got the impression, I was under the impression that, we don't need to talk about that, but Lyle Wagner was stunning and funny, and had a great wife, and he started a whole new business off of Wonder Woman. I think he got a little sick of it, to tell you the truth. I don't blame him. We've been in that role for years, and it's not that, what am I, some kind of a dunce? Can I rescue her once in a while? you know, yeah, I enjoyed working with him, and I was always really happy that that I had a chance to, because he was a great guy. She was great. She was great. Her test was great, and she brought a whole fresh thing, and as I recall, my experience with her is quite different than I've read what her experience was on the show. My experience was that she was a young actress who wanted to break into the movies. This was a big break for her, but after she did it for a couple of episodes, that she didn't like it so much. And she, you know, she was going through some personal things at the time. I would never mention what they are. But we spent hours after work just talking. And she was a really great, natural, fresh. As a matter of fact, I would say that I learned something from working with her. I learned something about the immediacy and the in the moment stuff because of her work. And she was great in it. I think she, you know, I think that there was a time when, and it happens with all actors, where you distance yourself from anything you ever did in the past because you don't like it anymore. You don't like your work, you didn't like that album, you didn't like that music, you didn't like that piece of art, you didn't like that book, whatever it is. All of us want to be the best at what we're doing in the moment. You know, I don't want to talk about that anymore, you know. I think acting, it's all in the preparation. And I think I learned more about that later on in my career. I would say there are a couple of real stinkers in Wonder Woman, where I had they'd gotten me some acting coach who thought I should really be playing up Wonder Woman. So I did that, and they're really awful. And I'm not going to tell you what they are because then you'll point them out. So I think we're all works in progress. And you'd be insane if you could be in the moment at all times. But if you know your lines and you've built your character, and that's all in the preparation of it. So in a series, you've done a lot of that work already. And occasionally you'll get some challenge coming to you, but I think that's not the norm. You're still usually playing your character. So I did a lot of work on thinking through the character of Wonder Woman, what her life would have been like. Yeah, I use it all. I think most actors, whether they say they do or not, use it all. Because you are pretending, you know. And there is such a thing as sense memory, and it is, in fact, true. If you try to smell something strong like bourbon, if you did that now, you could recreate that smell. And that's what, in acting, that's what they try to teach you, to really remember what that smell of that wine is, that bouquet is. Or it's harder to bring up painful things because I think a person's natural you know, their natural inclination would be to avoid pain. However, just thinking of my grandmother will bring me to tears. Yeah, I can go there just thinking of good times with her. There's this famous story about I think Cecil B. DeMille and I Want to Be Alone, what was her name? Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo, she's at the bow of the ship is sailing, and I want you to, this and that. And it just is not happening. So he goes over to her and he says, what did you have for breakfast? No, don't tell me. I want you to, I'm going to write, and I want you to think, bite by bite, what you had for breakfast. So she goes up, and you don't know what emotion it is, but she's really focused. So instead of trying to focus on some great memory as the ship goes out of the thing, you're focused on that. So there are a lot of things that you can pull from in, As a matter of fact, Deborah Winger has a great story about Urban Cowboy that I've heard, about this great scene that between her and Richard Gere and how wonderful she was. And I read somewhere that she was thinking about how much she hated him and the director because they were so mean to her or something. If you're in the moment, whatever it is you're feeling, you're better off not stuffing that.
Ford Territory presenta Change Drive. Hacemos realidad tu pequeño gran cambio.
Hola, Juan.
Tex llega para cambiar la vida de Juan y con Ford Territory lo ayudamos a empezar ese cambio de la mejor manera. El cambio arranca con vos. Nosotros te acompañamos en el camino.
Ciro viene a Doha, es la mejor fiesta argentina acá y vos la vas a poder seguir a través del Instagram de Mostaza. Lo dejo, no te olvides, 5 de la tarde para disfrutar que somos argentinos, para disfrutar de una mega fiesta y Mostaza te lo va a mostrar todo.
I think it happens all the time. I think that I will still go over music and lyric. If I've done it often enough, I'll go over it and just rethink it all together, and it'll take me into a different place in terms of, so it doesn't end up yodeling. You're not just yodeling, So on a script or even a character you've done for a while, you can end up, through memorization, you can end up kind of reading the page in your mind without identifying with it. So, yeah, and that's kind of the fun. That's where the fun of acting or singing or writing music comes in. It's waking up in the middle of the night and writing it down, or taking something that's happening off the set or at home. I got to go do this scene and something else has happened. Bring that, and no matter what you're saying, I'm happy. Okay, I'm happy, or I'm happy, or whatever it is, that you can. Isn't it beautiful? Oh, that's beautiful. So wherever you are, it will change the the focus. So yes, you can change the intent of what you think the writer is trying to do. But you have to be very clever. I don't think they built sweet into Wonder Woman. I don't think they built that into any script, how I approached Diana Prince or how any of that likability. I don't think that they wrote that at all. How cool to have these abilities, to be in control, to be able to do something good. That's why in video games, these role-playing games, you can be, I mean, as an actor, I haven't had much of a chance to play bad guys, but it's so much fun. I did a double episode of Law and Order SVU and then regular Law and Order, and I got to play this sociopathic woman, and it was a blast. It was so much fun, and it was creepy, and I didn't try for creepy. I just, hopefully just did good work. So why we love superheroes is because we want to, it would give us a chance to be in control. Like what super hero power or ability would you like to have? People ask, I'm asking you.
Flight.
Flight. That's a good one. Wonder Woman didn't have that, but I think that's probably the one I would choose. Not a Wonder Woman powers, just any kind of a power. Because I fly in my dreams and it's a blast. I really liked the Hulk. I thought that Bill Bixby, once again, did a great job on humanizing that character. And the Hulk was the Hulk. But then, of course, I knew Lou Ferrigno, know him, and back then, one of the all-time sweetest guys ever. So I can't help but infuse even the Hulk with some of Lou's gifts. And I really thought that Lindsay Wagner in The Bionic Woman was amazing. I thought that she also humanized, that part. And she's another one that's got a lot of ability. And I think it's difficult. Kudos from my point of view. Just never play the superhero and you'd be fine. I would say it's my favorite line that I've used is the goddess within. And occasionally when someone comes up to me to relate to me their experience or how they dressed for Halloween or whatever it is, or when they were kids, they jumped off the roof and broke their leg. And, is particularly when someone gives me a big hug, I'll whisper in their ear, "It's the goddess within." And I think people identify with that. So yes, definitely. I mean, shoot. In our dreams, we can be anything we want to be.